The wind howled across the white, broken land of Koro 7. Snow danced like angry spirits, biting through every crack in Jace's old coat. His boots crunched over frozen wires and cracked plastic. Ruins of a refugee camp stretched out around him, abandoned tents, scorched shelters, and piles of frozen waste. He wasn't there for charity. He needed scrap anything to sell for credits. His ship, the Ember Bird, was almost out of fuel, and his stomach had been empty for 2 days. But then, Jace saw something that made him stop. Half covered in snow near a collapsed pod was a shape. It wasn't scrap, it was a person. He stepped closer, carefully brushing the snow away. His breath caught. It was a girl, an alien girl. Young and still, skin pale blue with strange silver patterns across her face. Her eyes were closed, her lips trembling slightly. She wore nothing but thin, torn cloth wrapped around her body. Her fingers were stiff, skin cracked from cold. She was barely breathing. Jace looked around. But there was no one else, no family, no crew, no guards. They had left her to die in the frost. Like trash, he knelt beside her, took off his gloves, and pressed 2 fingers to her neck. A faint pulse weak, but there, she was alive. Why would anyone leave her like this? He whispered to the wind. No one answered. Jace's mind raced. He had only 35 credits left, just enough to buy a bit of food or a liter of fuel. But if he left now, she'd be dead before he came back. If he stayed too long, he might freeze too. He looked down at the girl again, her skin slowly turning bluer. He made a choice. He picked her up gently. Surprised by how light she was, her body barely moved. But a soft sound came from her lips, like a whisper. He held her close and began walking, pushing against the wind toward the trading post at the camp's edge. The vendor squinted at him. You again? What is it now? I need thermal clothes, Jace said, setting the girl down beside a heater. The vendor raised an eyebrow. That for her? Jace nodded. Everything I've got, and placed all 35 credits on the counter. The vendor scoffed. You're gonna freeze for some alien girl? Just give me the clothes, Jace said, voice cold like the snow outside. The vendor tossed him a small thermal wrap and a heat-bonded suit. Barely enough, but it would have to do. Jace knelt and wrapped the suit around the girl's fragile body. Pressing the heater close to her chest, her skin slowly changed from deep blue to soft violet. The silver patterns on her skin began to glow faintly. Like hidden lines under the surface, she blinked. Her eyes opened slowly deep violet with a ring of gold. She looked up at him, confused, scared, weak. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why? Did you help me? Jace stared at her, unsure what to say. Because I couldn't leave you, he wanted to say. Because you didn't deserve this. But all he said was, you looked cold. Her lips twitched. Almost like a smile, but her eyes filled with tears. She tried to sit up, but her body failed her. And she slumped forward. Jace caught her before she fell, holding her close. You're okay now, he said softly. I've got you. He carried her back through the storm. Back toward the Ember Bird, every step was harder. The snow rising, the wind screaming. But Jace didn't stop. He looked down at her glowing skin, felt her faint breath against his chest. Something inside him whispered this girl wasn't just another refugee. Something about her was different. Important, maybe dangerous, but it didn't matter, not now. He reached the ship and opened the hatch. Warmth rushing to meet him, he laid her on his bunk, wrapped her in his only blanket. The engines hummed quietly, lights flickering dimly above. His ship was falling apart, but at least it was safe. As the girl slept, Jace sat beside her, staring at the snow through the window. He had nothing left, no money, no food, barely any fuel. But he didn't regret his choice, not yet, outside. The snowstorm raged like a warning. Inside, the alien girl breathed slowly, her silver veins glowing softly in the dark. The silence was deep, but it wasn't empty. It was the start of something more, something strange, and maybe something beautiful. The hum of the old ship filled the quiet cabin. Jace sat on a metal crate near the bunk. Watching the girl sleep, she looked peaceful now, her body warm and wrapped in the blanket, but he hadn't forgotten how cold she had been. How close to death. He leaned back against the wall, rubbing his tired eyes outside the ship. The storm howled across the frozen ground of Cora 7. They were safe, for now, but safe didn't last long out here. The girl stirred, then let out a soft sound. Like a cry hidden behind her breath, her eyes opened slowly. Glowing faint in the dark light, she sat up weakly. Clutching the blanket around her, Jace stood and offered her a small cup of hot broth. The last he had. She looked at it, then at him, eyes filled with confusion and caution. "It's not poisoned," he said with a slight smile. She took it, her fingers trembling, and drank slowly. The warmth returned color to her face. Her silver skin shimmered in the soft light. Her hair, long and tangled, framed her sharp yet soft features. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "My name is Lyra Jace," he replied, sitting back down. "You were almost gone when I found you. I remember snow," she whispered. "And pain. Do you know who did that to you?" He asked gently. Lyra's face darkened, her hands gripping the blanket tighter. "They wanted something inside me," she said. "I don't know what, but they called me ... Property. Jace didn't like that word. He had seen it too many times, branding on backs, chains on wrists, the same cruelty across systems. He looked at her glowing skin, the strange silver lines under the surface. "I think whoever they were, they lost something important," he said. "Because you're not theirs anymore?" She looked at him then, really looked. "You're not like the others. I'm not special," Jace said, with a small laugh. "Just stubborn." Lyra smiled faintly. Then her eyes shifted to the ship around her. "It's small," she said, voice still quiet. "Yeah. She's called the Ember Bird," Jace said proudly. "Barely flies, eats fuel like a beast, but she's mine. You live here?" "Every day," he nodded. "Eat, sleep, fly." "Fix then, do it again." She touched the wall beside her, silver light pulsing beneath her fingertips. "It's warm, not always," Jace muttered. "But today's a good day." Lyra looked down at her arms, the glowing patterns shifting slightly. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. "No," Jace said. "But I bet it's worth more than my ship." He paused, then added, "Don't worry. I'm not going to sell you. I didn't think you would," she said softly, eyes full of something sad and grateful. Suddenly, the ship's console beeped a sensor alert. Jace stood quickly, walking to the controls. A small signal was pinging nearby, too regular to be weather, too weak to be a distress call. He frowned. "What is it?" Lyra asked, her voice sharper now. "Not sure," he said. "Could be nothing. Or someone looking for you." Her body tensed. The glowing marks dimmed slightly. "They'll find me," she whispered. "They always find me." Jace turned to her. "Not if I can help it." He began running check shields low. Power supply weak, only 16% fuel remaining. If they needed to run, they had maybe one jump left. He looked back at Lyra, still recovering, still fragile. Could she even survive another escape? "We need to leave this moon," he said. Soon, Lyra nodded slowly, then reached into the folds of her blanket, pulling out a small, glowing crystal. "This was hidden inside me," she said. "I tore it out before I ran." Jace's eyes widened. "That's a core fragment." She nodded. "It has coordinates. Something old, something hidden." Jace took the crystal carefully and slotted it into the nav terminal. A map lit up on the screen. Stars, tunnels, forgotten paths. One location blinked in the distance, far from any known system. A place marked with only one word: Sanctum. "Looks like you had a plan," Jace said. "Impressed?" "No plan," she whispered. "Just hope." The console beeped again. Closer signal now. Jace's heart pounded. "They're tracking us." He turned to Lyra. "Can you stand?" She nodded, weak but determined. "Good," he said, grabbing a blanket and wrapping it around her again. "You're not dying on my ship." He paused, then added, "Welcome aboard, for the first time." Her smile reached her eyes, and in that moment, as the wind screamed and the engines began to stir, two strangers, one human, one hunted, became something more. A crew, a spark, a new beginning in the frozen dark. The stars outside shimmered like frozen fireflies inside the Ember Bird. The hum of the old engine filled the cabin with a low, uneasy rhythm. Jace sat at the co-pilot's chair, staring at the glowing map Lyra's crystal had unlocked. It showed a route no one should know, a path through dead systems and collapsed gates. Only one location blinked at the edge of the void. Sanctum. Behind him, Lyra slept in the bunk, her skin glowing faintly under the blanket, but even in sleep, her body twitched as if something inside her refused to rest. Jace walked over slowly and crouched beside her. The silver patterns under her skin had changed. They moved. Like they were alive, curiosity pulled at him. He reached out, gently lifting the blanket from her arm. There it was, clear now. A symbol embedded into her skin just below her shoulder. It wasn't a tattoo, not even a burn mark. It was etched beneath the flesh, made of light and something metallic. Jace narrowed his eyes, whispering to himself. That's not natural. He had seen things, cyberbrands, genetic trackers, nano-tattoos, but nothing like this. It pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. Suddenly, Lyra stirred, her eyes opening in a flash. Her hand grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't touch it," she gasped. "Breathing hard, it reacts." Jace froze, but didn't pull back. "React how?" he asked, voice calm. Lyra let go and turned her head away, her eyes full of fear. "It reads my thoughts and sends them somewhere." Jace sat down beside her, shocked. "Wait, this thing is a transmitter?" Lyra nodded slowly. "I was part of an experiment. They wanted to grow something inside me, something connected to old machines." Jace's stomach turned. He'd heard whispers, projects that mixed organic life with ancient tech. Outlawed research, forbidden science, but no one had ever brought back proof. Now he was sitting next to it. "Is that why they're chasing you?" he asked. Lyra looked at him, her face hard, her voice like a blade. "They didn't want me, Jace. They wanted what I might become." For a long moment, silence filled the ship. The kind of silence that sinks into bones and stays. Jace looked down, then said, "You're not a weapon." "Lyra." She blinked, surprised. "You're a person," he added. "Not their lab rat?" She smiled a little, though her eyes still held storm clouds. "They'll come for me again," she said. "They always do." Jace stood up and walked to the cockpit. "Then we keep flying," he said. "They want you." "They'll have to go through me first." Suddenly, a loud beep shattered the moment. Proximity alert. Jace rushed to the controls, eyes wide. Something had locked onto them from the surface, something fast, something armed. A ship was rising from the planet behind them, silent and sharp, like a blade of black glass. Lyra joined him, gripping the edge of the console. "I know that ship," she whispered. "They worked for the project." Jace checked the system shields at 22%. Weapons offline, jump drive still charging. "We can't fight them," he said. "We need a plan." Lyra touched the screen, and her fingers lit up with silver light. The ship's interface flickered, reacting to her touch. "Wait," Jace muttered. "You can control the ship." I don't know how, she said, but it listens to me. Jace watched as the ship's system's stabilized power rerouted. Shields hardened, engines glowed hotter. He looked at her. A strange thought in his mind. Lyra? What exactly did they put inside you? She didn't answer, but the mark on her skin pulsed brighter. Outside, the enemy ship locked weapons, charging a plasma cannon. They had 30 seconds. Jace hit the throttle, pulling the Emberbird into a steep climb. We can't outrun them, he said. Lyra stepped forward, placing her hand on the nav console. The star map reappeared, and she whispered a command. Not in English, not in any language Jace knew. A second later, a small blue gate flickered into life ahead in stable. Ancient, but real, a ghost gate. Jace breathed. It shouldn't exist. Lyra turned to him. Do you trust me? Jace looked at the warship closing behind them. Then at the girl who had nearly frozen to death in his arms. He nodded once. With my life, he gripped the controls as the Emberbird roared toward the gate. The enemy ship fired missiles launched, plasma bolts screaming through space. But the ship responded to Lyra's touch. Shields flared. And engines surged with unnatural power. They vanished into the gate seconds before impact. Light swallowed them whole. Asterisk, the stars outside shimmered like broken glass. The Emberbird drifted slowly through a dark corridor of space. The jump gate had closed behind them silent. Ancient, forgotten by time. Jace stared at the console. Still gripping the controls, his knuckles white. They had escaped, but just barely. Beside him, Lyra stood quiet, her eyes glowing dim under the pale lights. She was calm on the outside, but her breathing was fast. She hadn't said a word since they passed through the ghost gate. Where are we? Jace finally asked. Lyra blinked, her hand still resting on the nav panel. Between known systems, she whispered. This space was hidden. Before the war, the ship creaked as it adjusted to the strange gravity field. The star map blinked. There was no path. No beacon, no signal. Just black space and silence. Jace leaned back in the chair, his heart still racing. You saved us back there, he said. I don't even know how Lyra looked at her hands. The silver veins glowing faintly. I didn't know either, she said. It's like the ship listens to me. Like I'm part of it. Jace didn't answer, but his mind was running fast. She was more than a girl on the run, more than just a lab escapee. She was connected to something powerful, maybe even ancient. Suddenly, the console beeped an alert. Jace frowned and turned to the display. Incoming signal. Unregistered, encrypted. What is it? Lyra asked, stepping closer. Someone found us, Jace muttered. But there's no ID. He tapped a button, and a voice filled the cabin. Low, sharp, metallic, pilot of Emberbird. You are carrying classified property. Surrender immediately, and you will be shown mercy. Jace stared at the speaker. No name, no face, just threats, he said. They found me again, Lyra whispered, her voice shaking. They always find me. The ship jolted suddenly, as if something had latched onto the hull. Jace checked the systems, a magnetic clamp. They're boarding us, he growled. Lyra stepped back, eyes wide. No, please. Not again. Jace stood quickly, grabbing a small pulse rifle from under the console. He turned to her. Hide in the cargo bay, under the floor panels. But no time, Lyra, he said firmly. They're not getting you. She hesitated, then nodded, disappearing down the corridor. Jace locked the cockpit door and turned just as the airlock opened. Smoke hissed out, and 4 figures stepped in, wearing dark armor and visors. Mercenaries, not soldiers, hired guns, cold and paid well. One stepped forward, scanning the room. He held a data chip, flashing red. Human, the leader said. You are carrying Subject 07. Jace raised the rifle. She's not a subject. She's a person, not to us. the merc said, voice flat. Hand her over. Jace tightened his grip on the weapon. You'll have to kill me first. The mercenary didn't flinch. He raised his weapon, but before he fired, the ship lights flickered. The walls pulsed with silver light, faint but growing. The merc leader turned slowly. What is that? Jace didn't answer. Somewhere in the belly of the ship, Lyra's body was glowing again. The ship was reacting to her fear, her energy, suddenly. The floor panels in the hallway lit up, then exploded with a shockwave of light. Two of the mercs were thrown back. Weapons flying, Jace dove behind the console. Firing once hitting the third in the leg, the fourth ran toward the back. But the door sealed itself shut, trapping him. The leader cursed and turned his gun toward Jace. But the ship's core pulsed again, and this time the lights above exploded. Darkness filled the cabin, followed by emergency red glow. Then came footsteps, soft, slow, and terrifying. Lyra stepped into the room, her body glowing like fire trapped under skin. Her eyes blazed silver, her voice echoed strangely. Leave. Now the merc froze, gun shaking in his hands. You don't know what you are, he muttered. I know enough, she replied and lifted her hand. The ship responded instantly. Cables shot out from the walls, grabbing the merc and pulling him backward. He screamed once before the airlock opened again, sucking him and his weapon into the void. Silence returned. Jace stood slowly, staring at Lyra. She was shaking, her power fading. She collapsed to her knees. Gasping for air, he rushed to her side, catching her just before she hit the floor. Hey, I've got you, he said, holding her tight. I'm here. She looked up at him, tears in her glowing eyes. I don't want to be this, she whispered. I just want to be free. Jace pressed his forehead to hers gently. You are, he said. You're not theirs anymore. Outside. Space was silent again, but somewhere far off. A beacon had been activated, and others were already on their way. The Ember Bird shook violently as warning lights blinked across the console. Jace gripped the pilot's chair, sweat dripping down his brow. They had less than 90 seconds before more bounty ships reached them. The enemy beacon had gone live, broadcasting their location to every mercenary and slaver in the sector. Lyra sat beside him, her skin dim but still glowing in strange waves. She was pale, breathing hard. Her power drained from fighting off the first boarding team. You okay? Jace asked, not taking his eyes off the screen. I'm trying, she whispered, her voice thin. The ship's systems. They pulled too much from me. Jace didn't fully understand how she powered the ship. But right now, he didn't need to understand, he just needed to survive. He tapped the throttle, but the ship refused to engage. No, come on, girl, he muttered, slamming the control panel once. Fuel levels, 9% jump core. Cooling down 2 minutes, he cursed under his breath. We can't jump, he said. We'll have to run manual. Lyra tried to sit up straighter. Grabbing the edge of the console, there's a gravity slingshot, she said, pointing to the ancient map still glowing on the screen. A what? That old dead moon if we fly close enough. We can use its pull to launch out of the belt. Jace didn't have time to argue. He turned the ship, adjusting the thrusters to aim straight for the jagged, ice-covered moon just ahead. The Ember Bird groaned as it turned sharply, metal creaking under stress. Behind them, a new signal lit up, a heavy assault ship, twice their size, moving fast. Jace's hands tightened on the controls. We're gonna feel this, he said. Hold on. Lyra leaned back, trying to steady her breathing. The marks on her skin flickered faintly, like embers ready to die out, but her eyes stayed locked on the screen, calm despite the chaos as they approached the moon. The ship began to rattle. The gravitational pull pulled them in faster than expected. We're too close, Jace muttered, adjusting the stabilizers. The enemy ship followed, charging plasma cannons, lining up for a clear shot. "Not today," Jace whispered. He activated manual override, flipping every power reserve left into the engines. The Emberbirds screamed forward, barely missing the moon's jagged ridge. The force slammed both of them back in their seats. Alarms blaring, panels sparking, then a burst of speed. The ship shot forward like a bullet, slingshotting through the curve of the moon's orbit. The enemy vessel tried to follow, but it wasn't agile enough. It clipped the edge of the ice and exploded in a flash of red and white. Jace let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "We made it," he said, half laughing. "We actually made it," but Lyra didn't answer. He turned to Hirsch. She was slumped in the seat, eyes closed, barely breathing. "Lyra," he said quickly, shaking her gently. "Hey. Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open slowly. "I'm okay," she said softly. "Just tired." Jace helped her lie down on the side bench. Covering her with the blanket again, "You saved us," he said, voice low. Again, she looked up at him, her voice like a whisper in the dark. "Don't leave me behind." "I never will," Jace promised, brushing her hair back gently. "You're safe here." Outside the ship, the stars stretched wide. But they weren't alone. New signals were appearing. Different ones, not bounty hunters this time. Unknown ships, scanning, circling. Jace watched the radar, frowning. "They're not moving in," he said. Just watching, he tapped the comms panel, trying to hail them, but there was no response. Only silence. Suddenly, the nav screen blinked a new symbol. A circle with ancient lines spinning around it, glowing faintly blue. "What's that?" he asked. Lyra sat up weakly, eyes wide. "It's Sanctum," she said. "We're close." The signal was coming from a cluster of dark space ahead, nothing on the star map. No planets, no gates, just a shadow, floating, hidden in the void as they drew closer. The outline of something massive began to appear. It wasn't a station, it was something else. A structure, old and forgotten, covered in space dust and metal vines. It pulsed softly, reacting to their approach. Lyra stared at it, tears in her eyes. "I saw it in my dreams," she whispered. "I didn't think it was real." Jace slowed the Emberbird. Approaching carefully, the unknown ships around them didn't move. They watched silently, as if waiting for permission. Then, without warning, a section of the massive structure opened. A docking bay, dark, ancient but alive. Jace turned to Lyra. "You sure about this?" She nodded slowly. "This is where it all began. And maybe where it ends," as the Emberbird glided into the open bay. The lights around them dimmed. The unknown ships disappeared one by one, like shadows returning to the dark and behind them. The stars seemed to close like a door. The docking bay was silent. No crew, no voices. No lights except the ones glowing from the walls themselves. They pulsed slowly like a heartbeat, reacting to the presence of the Emberbird. Jace stepped out first, blaster in hand, eyes scanning every shadow. The air inside the massive station was thin and old. It smelled like rust and dust and time. Behind him, Lyra followed, wrapped in her blanket, her bare feet touching the cold metal floor. "This place feels." She paused, looking around, familiar. Jace glanced at her. "You've been here before?" She shook her head. "Not in life, maybe in memory." They walked down a long corridor, the walls lighting up gently with every step. Lyra's silver markings began to glow brighter as they moved deeper. The ship they came in, the Emberbird, remained behind, docked and quiet, like it too was holding its breath. At the end of the corridor was a large, round chamber. In the center floated a smooth black sphere, cracked but pulsing with light. Lyra's eyes widened the moment she saw it. "It's a heart," she whispered, "a living core." Jace stepped closer, watching the patterns moving across its surface. "Looks dead to me," he said. "No," Lyra said, placing her hand gently on it. "It's asleep." The moment her skin touched the surface, the entire room shook. Lights flared to life. Engines deep below began to hum. Lyra gasped and dropped to her knees. Gripping her head, her markings lit up like fire. Silver turning gold. Lines crawling across her arms and neck like veins of light. "Lyra." Jace ran to her, catching her before she collapsed. Her body was too hot. She trembled violently. Eyes wide with pain and power. "I can feel it," she whispered. "It's waking something in me." The sphere rose higher, splitting open slowly like a flower made of stars. Inside, it was a second course, smaller, brighter, spinning with strange symbols and ancient alien script. A beam of light shot from it and wrapped around Lyra's body, lifting her into the air. "N." Jace shouted, reaching up, but he couldn't touch her. The light burned too hot, too bright. Lyra hovered in the center of the room, arms spread, eyes glowing white. Her voice echoed not from her mouth, but from the walls, the floor, the very air. "She is the key," the voice said, "deep and layered, ancient and alive. She carries the spark of the first gate." Jace backed away, heart pounding. "What does that mean?" He shouted, "What is she?" The voice answered calmly, "She is the memory of a dying race. The seed of a new cycle, chosen not by design, but by chance." Lyra screamed once, not in fear, but in release. A shockwave burst from her body, cracking the metal floor. Then silence. Her body dropped slowly into Jace's arms. Her markings dimmed back to silver, her breathing steady but shallow. He held her tightly, whispering, "I've got you." A moment later, the lights in the chamber changed. Green lines appeared on the walls, forming symbols Jace couldn't read. The black sphere returned to its closed form and lowered into the floor from the wall behind them. A door opened, quiet, smooth, welcoming. Jace looked down at the girl in his arms. Her skin was warm, no longer burning. Her expression was peaceful now, like something heavy had been lifted. He stood, carrying her through the door. Beyond it was another room round, filled with soft light and rows of old machines. They looked like medical pods, but older, more advanced. One of them opened automatically, lights blinking gently. Jace hesitated, then laid her inside. The pod closed around her slowly. Humming softly as it scanned her body, a screen appeared, showing her pulse, her brain waves, her energy patterns off the charts. Then a soft voice echoed, "Healing process initiated. Power restoration in progress. Estimated time, 3 hours." Jace sat on the floor beside the pod. Exhausted, he didn't understand half of what just happened. But one thing was clear. Now Lyra wasn't just some lost girl. She was tied to something much, much bigger. And that meant he was now part of it too. He leaned back against the wall, closing his eyes. The silence of the room wrapped around him, soft and deep, but just before he drifted into sleep, the COM panel on his wrist buzzed. An incoming message, scrambled and weak. He tapped it, and a broken voice came through to any ship in the hidden sector. "Do not trust the Sanctum. They're not protecting her. They're preparing her." The message cut out. Jace stared at the screen, heart pounding again. He looked at Lyra through the pod glass. "What are you?" he whispered. "And what are they going to turn you into?" Behind him, another light turned. Anna's shadow moved in the far hallway, and this time they weren't alone. Jace stood slowly, every muscle tense. The message echoed in his mind. "Don't trust the Sanctum." He turned toward the hallway, the one where the shadow moved. The light there was faint, flickering like a dying star. He reached for his blaster and stepped forward. Silent as breath, the Sanctum wasn't dead. It was watching, thinking, waiting, Lyra lay in the pod behind him, still healing, glowing gently, unaware of what might be coming. Jace moved carefully through the corridor. The walls here were different, shiny, alive, like they had veins under the surface. He touched one, and it twitched slightly. He pulled his hand back fast. A figure stepped out of the darka, tall, slim form, with long limbs and no visible face. It shimmered like glass, but its voice was strong. "You have brought her here, as was intended." Jace raised the blaster. "Back off," he said. The figure didn't move. "She is the final key to unlock the first core," it said, "and you are the vessel that carried her safely." "I'm not your delivery boy," Jace growled. The figure tilted its head. "You misunderstand, human. You were chosen by her energy, by instinct, not by fate." Jace narrowed his eyes. "She's not a weapon. She is more than that." The being said, "She is the rebirth of a species." And the beginning of a war. Jace's heart dropped. What war? But the figure didn't answer. Instead, it dissolved into particles of light and vanished. Leaving only the silence, Jace rushed back to the healing pod. Lyra's eyes were open now, soft and glowing. "Hey," he said, kneeling beside her, "you okay?" "I saw things," she whispered, "in dreams, in memories. This place wants to use me." "I heard a message," Jace said. "Someone tried to warn us." Lyra sat up slowly. The pod hissing open. Her skin was brighter now. Her body stronger, but her face was sad. Her voice trembling. "I'm not a soldier. Jace, I'm not a queen. I'm just tired." He took her hand. "Then we don't let them choose for you." Suddenly, the walls of the sanctum pulsed red. A deep tone echoed through the chamber. A countdown. Core activation. Phase 1 beginning. Security protocols engaged. Exit sealed. They were being trapped. Jace jumped to the controls, trying to stop the sequence, but the interface didn't respond. "It's locked us in," he said. "They're trying to force a merge between you and the core." Lyra stepped forward, standing tall despite her shaking hands. "I can stop it," she said. "But I'll need help." Jace turned to her. "What do I do?" "Keep me grounded," she whispered. "Don't let them take my mind." She placed both hands on the center panel. Energy surged around her. The floor glowed. The air grew thick with light and heat. Her markings flared gold again. Her eyes filled with white fire. Voices began to speak through her, hundreds at once. System override. Core link engaged. Primary vessel selected. Jace grabbed her shoulders. "Lyra, stay with me." "You're not alone," she screamed, her voice echoing through every wall of the sanctum. And then silence. The glow vanished. The walls dimmed. The countdown stopped. Lyra collapsed into Jace's arms. Breathing fast, he held her tight, whispering her name again and again until she opened her eyes. "I broke the link," she said, exhausted. "The core is asleep again." Jace helped her stand. "Then let's get out of here." They ran back through the corridors, no longer glowing, no longer alive. The sanctum was dead again. And they wanted it to stay that way. At the dock, the Emberbird waited like an old friend. Lights blinking, engines warm. They boarded fast. Jace carrying Lyra into the cockpit. He set her down gently and fired up the controls. The outer doors opened, slow but steady. And space greeted them once more as the ship pulled away. The massive structure of the sanctum shrank behind them. Silent now, still again, but Jace knew others would come looking. And next time, it wouldn't be so easy. He looked at Lyra, curled in the seat beside him. Eyes half closed. "You're free now," he said. She smiled weakly. "Thanks to you." He smiled back. "Welcome aboard, Lyra." Her hand reached for his. Fingers cold but steady. "Where are we going now?" she asked. Jace stared into the stars. "Anywhere but here." And with that, the Emberbird turned slowly, heading into deep space, a human with nothing And a girl who is almost everything. No money, no allies. No plan, just each other. But sometimes that's all you need to change the galaxy.